2 weeks after her Vegas trip, the doctor said 6 words that ended our future. The test was positive. I knew I hadn't cheated. This isn't revenge. It's how facts forced me to leave and still choose hope. For almost a year, I was in what I thought was the kind of relationship people dream of, built on trust, care, and the hope of a future together. I still remember the day I first saw her in the university library. She was sitting by the window, surrounded by psychology textbooks, but instead of reading, she was staring into space with that expression I later learned meant she was wrestling with her inner demons. When our eyes met, she didn't look away like most girls do. Instead, she smiled that sad smile that immediately told me there was a story behind this beauty. Our first conversation lasted 3 hours. She told me about her childhood, filled with moves from city to city, about a mother who could never find stability, about a stepfather who tried to be a father figure but could never replace the one who left when she was 7. Her sister was preparing for a wedding in Greece, and this was the only stable element in their family chaos. Someone who had managed to build a normal relationship. I don't want to repeat my family's mistakes, she said then, playing with the edge of a napkin. I want to be someone different, better. And I believed her. Maybe because I wanted to be the one to help her achieve that, or because in her eyes I saw sincerity I rarely encountered in my peers. When we first became physically intimate a month later, I showed her my STI test results. Clean, as always. I had always been careful, always responsible with such matters. She thanked me for the openness and showed me her results from 2023, also clean. She said, I always get tested too. After my previous boyfriend cheated on me, I swore never to risk my health. Her grandmother lived in a small apartment on the outskirts of town, and the walls were covered with old family photos and diplomas that testified to the intellectual heritage she was proud of. When I first came there for dinner, grandmother looked at me skeptically, until I asked her to teach me to play mahjong. Most guys don't even try, she whispered to me as we set up the tiles. But you really want to learn. 3 hours later, I had lost every game to her, but I had earned her respect. And when I saw how my girlfriend's eyes lit up watching our game, I knew I was doing everything right. I was there for her during every exam, every panic attack, when it seemed like her world was falling apart. When she had the flu during finals week, I brought her soup and let her sleep in my bed while I studied on the floor. No one has ever cared about me like this, she whispered through her fever. I don't deserve you, I replied, brushing hair from her sweaty forehead. You do, and even more. The day I asked her to be my girlfriend, I had been planning for weeks. Not a grand scene, not a public display, but something personal, meaningful to both of us. I cooked her favorite dinner, put on a playlist of songs we danced to in her room, and after dessert, said, I want you to know, you have not just changed my life. You've made me a better person, and I want to keep growing together with you. She cried when she said yes, not from happiness as I thought then, but from relief. Relief that someone really saw in her who she wanted to become, not who she had been. She prayed for someone like you, she whispered in my ear. I didn't even believe such men existed. Those words seemed like the most sincere words I had ever heard. May was supposed to be our special month. Our friends were finally graduating from college, and we had big celebration plans. I remember us sitting in the cafe near campus discussing party details we were organizing for the weekend. She seemed happy, even excited. A rare state for someone who constantly battled anxiety and insecurity. "Finally, something positive is happening," she said, sipping her latte. "I feel like we're all moving to a new stage of life." Those words seemed incredibly optimistic to me then. Now I understand. She might have meant something completely different. That Monday, she got a call from her mother about a family trip to Las Vegas. "It'll be quick," she told me. "Just 3 days. Mom wants to spend quality time with the family before my sister's wedding." I didn't object. She rarely had the opportunity to spend quality time with family without drama and conflict. We agreed to stay in touch, as always. The first day, she sent photos from the hotel, complained about Mom's gambling, and joked about her brother's antics. The second day, there were fewer messages, but that didn't seem strange. She was always an introvert in large groups, even among family. The third day passed in complete silence. No messages, no calls. When I texted her, the reply came hours later. "Sorry, battery died. Home soon." Simple and without details. Not like her. Usually she told me about every detail of her day. When she returned, something had changed. Not dramatically, more like someone had slightly adjusted the settings of her personality. She was somewhat distant during our meetings, looked at her phone more often, initiated physical intimacy less. When I asked about the trip, her answers were general. "It was okay. Mom played slots as always. Nothing special." But then 2 weeks after her return, the nightmare began. I woke up in the morning to her call. She was crying from pain. She said, "Something's wrong," she said through tears. "The pain is so intense I can't breathe." I got dressed in 5 minutes and rushed to her. When I saw her bent over on the couch, her face pale from pain, I was gripped by panic. The pain spread from her abdomen to her shoulder, a symptom that seemed so strange we even thought about pregnancy. But the test was negative, and the pain only intensified. The first trip to the hospital was a farce. The attending physician, looking tired after a night shift, barely glanced at her before prescribing ibuprofen and advising her to see a gynecologist when convenient. I saw disappointment in her eyes. Women are often not taken seriously in medical facilities, especially young women with abdominal pain. The next night, the pain returned with double intensity. This time, we got a different doctor who decided to do a complete examination. Blood tests, urinalysis, ultrasound, the full diagnostic arsenal. I sat next to her in the sterile room, holding her hand while we waited for results. "Bladder infection," the doctor said, returning with the results. "But there's something else." He paused, reviewing the tests. "You also have chlamydia." I felt the world stop around me. Chlamydia. I knew what it was, knew how it was transmitted, and I also knew I couldn't have been its source. Her reaction was strange. Not shock, not denial, but some kind of resignation, as if part of her expected this result. "This is a mistake," she said, but her voice wasn't convincing. "This has to be a mistake." I got tested that same day. The result was predictable, positive. Sitting in the car with the document in my hands, I felt 11 months of trust and love crumble to dust. I had been faithful to her every second of our relationship. I had proof. Clean test results from early in the year, bank statements that confirmed my movements. I could prove my innocence documentally. When I showed her my positive result, she cried. But these weren't tears of despair or shock. These were tears of someone who realized their secret had finally been exposed. "I don't understand how this could have happened," she said, avoiding my gaze. "Maybe from an airport bathroom? I read that sometimes chlamydia isn't transmitted through toilet seats," I interrupted her. I had already read everything about this infection. Her 2023 results were clean. I had seen them myself. If she had always had chlamydia, as she later tried to claim, those tests would have been positive. The incubation period is 7 to 21 days. Her symptoms started exactly 2 weeks after returning from Vegas. The math was merciless in its simplicity. I began reconstructing that Vegas trip with the obsession of a detective investigating a case. Every detail, every message, every photo she sent me, everything became evidence in a case I never wanted to investigate. Initially, everything seemed normal. First day, photos from the hotel room, complaints that mom had already lost $200 on slot machines. Ordinary family trivia that reassured me. The second day, fewer messages, but that was understandable. Third day, complete silence until evening. Vegas is a city built on secrets. A city where people do things they would never do at home. Where what happens here stays here isn't just a marketing slogan, but a philosophy of life. Could she have succumbed to this atmosphere? Could a person who prayed for someone like me forget about me for one night among neon lights and alcohol? The timeline was perfect. The medical evidence was clear. But my heart didn't want to believe what my mind already knew. The first trip to the hospital was a farce. The attending physician, looking tired after a night shift, barely glanced at her before prescribing ibuprofen and advising her to see a gynecologist when convenient. I saw disappointment in her eyes. Women are often not taken seriously in medical facilities, especially young women with abdominal pain. The next night, the pain returned with double intensity. This time, we got a different doctor who decided to do a complete examination. Blood tests, urine analysis, ultrasound, the full diagnostic arsenal. I sat next to her in the sterile room, holding her hand while we waited for results. "Bladder infection," the doctor said, returning with the results. "But there's something else." He paused, reviewing the tests. "You also have chlamydia." I felt the world stop around me. Chlamydia. I knew what it was, knew how it was transmitted, and I also knew I couldn't have been its source. Her reaction was strange, not shock, not denial, but some kind of resignation, as if part of her expected this result. "This is a mistake," she said, but her voice wasn't convincing. "This has to be a mistake." "I can't find my 2024 results." When I asked her to prove her innocence documentarily, as I had proved mine, she said, "I was shifting between different hospitals and all the documents got lost somewhere." How convenient. A person who kept coffee receipts, who had a separate folder for all her medical documents, who was organized to the point of pedantry, suddenly couldn't find the most important test results of her life? Results that could either vindicate her or finally condemn her. Meanwhile, I laid out my medical history before her like I would lay cards on a table. Test results from January, March, May 5th, all negative. Bank statements showing where I was every day. Restaurant receipts where I dined alone or with friends. Gas station receipts on the way to work. I could account for every hour of my life in recent months. "Do you really want me to prove my innocence to you?" she asked me with hurt in her voice. But this wasn't the hurt of an innocent person. This was the hurt of someone who realized they could no longer avoid the truth. Her behavior changed dramatically after this conversation. The woman who used to call me every morning to wish me a good day now ignored my calls. The one who sent me photos of every meal she ate now left me on read for hours. And then she said something that became the last straw. "Please don't tell your parents about this." An innocent person would have asked me to tell everyone to prove their righteousness. An innocent person would have wanted support, understanding, sympathy from close people. But she asked to keep it secret. She feared not judgment, but exposure. When I asked her directly, "Did you cheat on me in Vegas?" she didn't say no. Instead, she said, "I don't know who I am anymore. Sometimes I don't see a future for us." Evasion instead of denial. Philosophical reflections instead of simple truth. I understood that our relationship ended in that moment, not because she cheated on me, but because she couldn't find the courage to admit it. Lies were destroying us faster than the betrayal itself. The most frightening thing wasn't that she had betrayed me. The most frightening thing was watching the person I had known and loved for over a year transform into someone completely different before my eyes, as if someone had stolen the real her and left me with just a shell containing her memories. She used to call me every morning to wish me a good day. Now my calls went to voicemail. She used to share every thought with me. Now her responses were one word: "Fine, okay, I don't know." When I tried to talk to her about our future, about how we could get through this together, she looked at me as though I was speaking a foreign language. "I don't know who I am anymore. Sometimes I don't see a future for us," she repeated. These weren't the words of someone fighting for our relationship. These were the words of someone who had already made a decision, but didn't have the courage to voice it. The breakup was messier than our relationship deserved. Even getting my belongings back became a war. Every toothbrush, every t-shirt, every book became a battlefield. At first, I thought it would be simple. "Can we meet and I'll get my things?" I texted her. The response came 2 days later. "Can't right now. Later." Later stretched into weeks. When I finally got a response, she suggested having our mutual friend Mike handle the exchange. "I'm uncomfortable meeting in person," she explained. I agreed. Though it hurt, even after everything that had happened, I wanted to maintain at least an appearance of civility between us. But even here, problems arose. Mike handed me a box with half my belongings. He said she couldn't find the rest, he reported with an uncomfortable expression. Couldn't find them? My favorite hoodie? A birthday gift from my parents? Several books I had lent her? All of this had suddenly disappeared from her one-bedroom apartment? When I texted her about this, she left me on red. A week later, I tried again. Silence. Again. On the third attempt, she replied, "Stop stalking me. They're just things. Buy new ones." Just things? A gift from my parents? Just a thing? A book with my notes in the margins? Just a thing? I realized the belongings were just symbols. She was holding on to part of me to maintain some control over the situation, so I couldn't completely disappear from her life, even if she had banished me from her consciousness. In the end, I backed down. I wrote her one last message. "Keep everything. I don't want anything that would remind me of us." She didn't even respond to that. That's when I realized I had lost not just the girl I loved, I had lost the person I respected, and that hurt much more. I never thought I'd need therapy, but the pain was unbearable. The world I lived in had crumbled, and I didn't know how to pick up the pieces. Every day was a struggle with doubt, pain, and uncertainty. Dr. Reynolds was a middle-aged woman with warm eyes and a calm voice. The first few sessions, I just told her facts. Chlamydia, Vegas, lies, betrayal. But gradually, she helped me see the bigger picture. She said, "You say she changed after the diagnosis. How did you change?" This question puzzled me. I had come here to understand her behavior, not my own. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I had changed too. I became more suspicious, more defensive, constantly analyzing every word, every gesture. I turned into a detective in my own relationship instead of being a partner. Dr. Reynolds continued, "You couldn't control her choices, but you can control how you respond to them now." The hardest part was accepting that I would never get the complete truth. Part of me still hoped for a call where she would explain everything, ask for forgiveness, tell the whole story. But Dr. Reynolds helped me understand closure doesn't come from other people. It comes from within. During the 6th session, I cried for the first time in months. Not from anger or disappointment, but from relief. Relief that I finally allowed myself to feel the full depth of the loss. Not just of the relationship, but of illusions about the person I loved. 6 months have passed since everything ended. I still go to therapy, but now not weekly, but once a month. The wounds are healing, though scars will remain forever. What surprised me most was that I didn't become cynical. After everything that happened, I expected to lose the ability to trust, love, open up. But the opposite happened. I became more careful, but not more closed. I learned to distinguish red flags I had previously ignored. I understood the difference between supporting a partner and trying to save them. Last month, I started dating a new girl, Emily. She's an elementary school teacher, has an amazing smile, and doesn't hide her history. When I told her about my experience, she didn't run away scared. Instead, she said, "Thank you for trusting me. I've had painful relationships too." With Emily, everything's different. She doesn't ask me to save her from the past. She works on herself independently. She doesn't hide medical results and doesn't avoid difficult conversations. When problems arise between us, we discuss them instead of pretending they don't exist. Sometimes I think about my ex-girlfriend. I wonder if she found what she was looking for in solitude, whether she managed to become the person she wanted to be. But those thoughts don't hurt like they used to. I wish her happiness, even if it doesn't include honesty with me. Most important lesson I learned: people can change, but not always for the better. And when someone shows you who they really are, believe them. Not their words, not your hopes, but their actions. I still believe in love, in honesty, that somewhere there exists a person who will value what I can give and give what I need. Maybe it's Emily, maybe someone else. But now I know I'm worth someone who won't make me doubt my own sanity or worth. My story didn't end happily.
but it ended wisely. And that has value too.